So once again, welcome to Growing Culturally Welcoming and Validating Programs. This is the first of a series of 3 webinars that we'll be doing. Today's session is titled Laying the Foundation. We're glad that you can join us today, and we look forward to spending some time with you. We're webcasting to you today from the West Coast, from the LEARNS Project. The LEARNS Project is the Corporation for National and Community Services Training and Technical Assistance Provider for Youth Serving Programs. My name is Eric, and as I was saying, you've probably gotten emails or phone calls from me, and so look forward to working with you today. I'll be the WebEx host for the session, and I'll introduce myself a little bit, and then I'll let our main presenter, Jinlin Wu, introduce herself, and then we'll cover a couple of housekeeping items and then dive in. So as for myself, I'm a former VISTA and recruiter for the Corporation for National and Community Service. After I served in those 2 capacities, I worked as a trainer and education consultant before returning to the Northwest to join the LEARNS team, where I helped develop and deliver face-to-face and online training sessions for programs working in tutoring, mentoring, out-of-school time, and other youth-oriented service. Jin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning. My name is Jinlin Wu, and please call me Jin. I'm talking to you from Seattle, Washington, and from my bedroom, which has the best soundproofing. So, hello. In terms of who I am, part of my life has really been about VISTA service, and I served starting in '68 and have been an alum and an active alum for now 40 years. My training is in education, and for almost 9 years, I helped oversee the diversity training for the Corporation for National and Community Service. So, but I think just as a person, I grew up kind of an old soul, and I have always cared that the classrooms I've been in, the programs that I've been in, that we are doing our best to respect and honor all the cultures of the students and young people and families represented in whatever context. So I'm really happy to be joining you with this conversation.
Great. Thank you, Jin. And we have a couple of activities in a second for us to get to know all of you a little bit better. But just in looking at our registration information, we see that we've got a good mix of people from all across the country working in different types of organizations. Most of you work with a program that provides some sort of service to children or youth, or we refer to all young people collectively as youth. So when you hear us say youth, we're also talking about young children as well. We know we have a few people that may be working with adults or different populations, or may not be doing tutoring or mentoring, and that's fine. Just so you know, most of our content is designed for programs that are working with youth, but we think a lot of what we'll talk about is applicable to different types of populations and different types of programs as well. In terms of affiliation with the corporation, it looks like we have a good representation of VISTAs. So it's always nice to see VISTAs on these, being a former VISTA myself. And looks like we have some folks from state education agencies, as well as folks from different types of organizations. So welcome to all of you. Glad you could be with us. Let me just cover a couple of housekeeping items on slide 3. So the first thing we'd ask is if you could mute your phone by pressing mute or mic if you have it on a console, or if not, you can also use *6 on your phone. That will mute your phone from our teleconference system. Okay? Some people are muting their phones there. Now, we had a full registration of 50 people. I'm seeing that we have only 19 in WebEx, and I'm guessing there are probably some people on the phone that are not in WebEx. So if we stay a small group like this, we might dispense with the muting and might just have a more open conversation. But at least to start, until we know about how many people we're actually going to have, we'd like to have you ask questions and make comments or offer up ideas using a couple of the tools in WebEx. So you'll see, first of all, and I'm just going to point to it here on the slide, but you should see a button that looks like a hand, and that's the raise hand icon. And it's going to appear over here on the right somewhere on your screen in the participant list. So if you click that, that tells us that you have a question. So I thank you, Brittany. How about other folks? If you could just quickly click on that raise hand icon.
Oops.
Thank you. Okay, so we're seeing that folks have got that down pretty good.
Uh-oh, I don't know why I'm not finding it.
Okay.
For Gail Hotchkiss, do I just click any hand?
Oh, well, you'll see it on our presentation slide, and I'll click on it right now. You should see a little button that looks like a hand. It'll be over here on the right-hand side.
I see lots of hands.
It's going to be a little bit lower on the little toolbar. There's other buttons across the bottom.
You probably see the hands next to the names. So if you go to the bottom of the list of names, you'll see some little icons, a hand, a check mark, an X.
Oh, I'm sorry. There I am.
Okay. Thank you.
And then do I put it up by me? Oh, I see. Thank you.
Sure. And
you're my first webcast.
No problem. I'm sure it is for other people as well. And actually, this is our first time doing a webinar with Jen, so we're learning as we go as well.
Yay.
But if everyone that raised their hand, if you could click that button again to lower your hands. Thank you. And then another way that you can give us feedback or ask us a question is to use the chat panel that will appear on the right-hand side of your screen somewhere. Now, some of these panels appear and then disappear depending on what's open. So you may need to, and I'll point it out here on the slide, you may need to click a button that looks like a down arrow, or it may be facing to the right, just to open and close your panels. So let me point out one more WebEx feature, and that is the annotation tools, which you will actually see at the top of your screen, or at the top of your WebEx screen, which looks like a series of tools you might find in Microsoft Word. So there's a pointer tool, a text tool, a rectangle tool, etc. So we have a few activities built into this presentation where we'd like you to use those annotation tools, including one on the next slide. And for those of you that are on the phone but are not in WebEx, we apologize that WebEx is not behaving for you, and we'll kind of tell you what we're doing as we go through the activities, and we'll also invite you to just speak up and share your thoughts as well. So speaking of the annotation tools, on slide 4, we have a little activity to get us thinking about growing culturally welcoming and validating programs. So we'd like to know how you say hello or how you greet people in your culture. So what I'd like to invite you to do is use the text tool. Again, that's the button at the top of your WebEx screen that looks like the letter T. And it looks like I might need to set some privileges here. Okay, now you should be able to click it. So if you click the button that looks like the letter T, and then click on the right-hand side of the table, you should be able to type in how you greet people in your culture, and then you also may need to click somewhere else on the screen just to set your text. So hi, good. People are getting this. Hello. Good. What's up? Good. And if you're on the phone, what we're doing is we're having folks on slide 4 type in the way they say hello or the way they greet people on the right-hand side of the slide. So, bienvenidos, hey there, hey, how are you? Estimas spouse? Oh, that sounds fun. Which language is that? Oh, whoever wrote that might have their phone on mute. So.
I'm trying to unmute. This is Chris in Spokane.
Hi, Chris.
That is Inner Salish, part Native American.
Oh, great.
And it actually says white Semaspose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I missed that first part. Okay, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Having served in Brooklyn, this is Jen. I can see someone wrote yo, and I relate to that as well.
Okay, so it looks like most of you have the hang of that tool, so we'll go ahead and move on. And thanks for participating in that little warm-up activity. And we like to use or demonstrate or have you practice with one more WebEx tool, and then we'll set Jen loose with the main content of the webinar. And this will also help us get to know you a little bit better. I'm going to open a poll, which should appear on the right-hand side of your screen somewhere. And this is just asking how long you've been working with youth, whether it's in your current position or in previous positions or previous lives that you've lived. Okay, and so for folks on the phone, we're just asking people in WebEx to indicate how long they've been working with youth. So the choices are less than a year, 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, 7 to 10 years, and then 10 or more years.
Make sure you hit the submit button. I kept forgetting to do that.
Yes, thanks, Jen. Good. Okay, it looks like everyone that's in WebEx provided an answer. Thank you. So let me publish the results so we can see who we have with us. Well, it looks like we have a good mix of people with different levels or different amounts of time working with youth, and including a good contingent of some veterans. People have been working for 10 or more years with youth. And I should say, and I'm sure Jen will echo this as well, for those of you that have been doing this for a while, and actually for everyone throughout this presentation, we'd love to have you share your ideas and your experience as well. You know, we have information we'd like to share with you, but we're always learning from you as well and from people we meet and talk with. So we encourage everyone to share what you have. And it looks like we're going to be a small enough group to where we can be really interactive and really invite some feedback or really get some feedback. Any other observations on these results or on the saying hello activity you want to comment on, Jen, before we get started?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Eric. I want to say that we have designed a couple of activities and we're playing with this webinar format to try to see how engaged we can keep it. Just even the simple activity of asking people how they greet and extend welcome to each other in their communities and their families can be built into, I think, a whole unit, and many of you probably have already done that, but it's a great way to engage parents. It's a great way to have students in a very natural way share culture and history. And, you know, I build off of, these are phrases and words. There are gestures and a lot of nonverbals that we do to extend a sense of welcome and affirmation. So I just want to let you know that every activity that we'll be modeling is something that could be extended and used to build really great conversation. I want to echo Eric's point about having this be much more of a conversation that we build together. There'll be opportunities for your chats to be recorded and summarized, as well as any comments that are made during this webinar. I prefer, I'm a facilitator really, and this has been a little challenge just thinking about talking to you as opposed to with you. So as much as possible, we'll try to make it a we conversation. And if after this session you have a lot to say about laying the foundation or the whole series, please use the feedback and the survey that follows this to give us information, and we can also cut and paste that into a document that everybody who participates on this can receive. I think we're ready, Eric.
Okay.
So you'll notice on slide 5, we clarified that this really is a series, and it's 3 parts. And I again apologize about, yes, yesterday and not being on, I did something to my lower back, and I wasn't very mobile for the last couple of days. So I appreciate the consideration, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience. In thinking about the work, it really is not something that you can just check off your list in terms of growing culturally welcoming and validating programs. It's something we make a commitment to for the long haul, and I think that the fact that we have an opportunity to do a series really reinforces the whole idea of it being something that happens over time, and it's something that we need to grow. And thinking about what would be useful, I tried to think about supporting a vision of the work, and so today is really about the big picture and about laying the foundation and understanding clearly why it's important to do and some of the thinking that has gone into what do we do when we do the work? What does that look like? Next, in 2 weeks, we'll be taking up the second conversation called Assessing the Climate and the Soil, and that will be more about clarifying where are you right now, and how do other people in your community feel about where you are, and how can you build off of that. So next, the next session, which will be September 23rd, is all about creating an accurate baseline and growing from where you're starting. The last session, I know that many of us rely really on our people to really help build the capacity to do this work, and so we'll focus on how we engage staff in training and in awareness building and in activities to help us achieve a culturally validating and welcoming program. But today's conversation is laying the foundation, and it is more about the big picture. Eric, I think we can go on to the next slide. Are there any questions? And I would encourage you to use the chat feature if you have other expectations than what we have proposed.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, as Jen said, you could type a question or comment in the chat panel and send to all participants, or if you could raise your hand, and we'll call on you. Or is there anyone on the phone that's not in WebEx that has a question or comment before we proceed?
Not me, not Gail Hopkins.
Okay.
Great. So in terms of today's goals, in keeping with the theme of laying, a solid foundation, one is really looking at the question of why is it important to do? Why bother? Why do this work in terms of growing, culturally welcoming and validating programs? So I have identified a bunch of reasons, and I hope you'll add to that list of reasons. We'll also look at a program in terms of what are the different opportunities the program presents and our infrastructure presents in terms of doing the work. I don't think it's relegated to one kind of activity, but really a systems approach so that, in fact, when people join us, they really get the message. They get it and they feel it, that they are welcome and that we want to and encourage honoring of the different cultural traditions that are in the group. Also, we'll learn about different strategies on how to create culturally inclusive programs. Over the three-part series, we'll also try to provide you resources of work that other people have done that will give you ideas that you can build off of. So the strategies will be about ideas, but also just about samples. I think that's it for today's goal. And the way, in the next slide, slide 7, we'll take the goals and move them into an agenda. They kind of fall neatly into sort of 3 chunks for our conversation. So one is taking up the conversation about why it's important. We're also going to do an exercise where I'm going to do kind of a shared visioning process where we get in touch with, so what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like to be in the midst of an affirming environment? The last chunk will be around marking the terrain. So there's a lot of work to do. We've all started in different places, and we'll look at that.
Okay.
Do you hear a beep?
Yeah, I think we have someone that has put us on hold or some other phone issue. So just like to remind folks to please mute your phone if you haven't already. We'll let you know when we've opened up, or when we'd like to open up the phone lines to have comments. So again,
I think that's my phone. I'm not sure, and there's no mute button on my phone.
okay, what if you try pressing *6?
Okay, I'll try it. I hope I don't lose you. Here I go.
Oh, that might not have been you. Let's see. Well, we can put it into presentation mode. So
Yeah, let's
we're reluctant
try
to do that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and mute everyone's phones, and just so that Jen can carry on with her material. So.
Presentation mode is now enabled.
Okay, are you still with us, Jen?
Yeah, I am. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Bear with us. We'll make sure that you'll get something valuable out of this. So if we turn to the slide 8, you know, I mentioned that the foundation really should be about really understanding why it's so important to do. So we're going to begin this, but actually I want to hold off raising the question about why and do some defining of terminology first. So Eric, if you'd advance to the next slide, we're going to invite folks to join us in this. So when you think about culturally welcoming and validating programs, I want you to think about the words or phrases or images that come to your mind. And in a moment, Eric's going to put up the whiteboard. You'll use your annotation tools. So hit the T and just share with us what you're thinking. Like when you think about that, what comes to mind? Eric, I think we can bring up the board.
Okay. Okay, so if folks could use your annotation tools again. Well, somebody figured out how to use the drawing tool. You can either draw a picture or use the text tool and type something in on the screen. Something that represents what a culturally welcoming and validating program, what that phrase means to you. And for folks on the phone, we've just opened up a screen and people are typing in words and drawing pictures that represent what that phrase means for them. So we have a heart, we have a sun, it looks like, we have a peace symbol, we have the words, oh, that's a creative one, double wide doorway opening up to a, I think that's supposed to be a kaleidoscope, accepting, pizza, unbiased, open-minded. Reaching out. Give people just a couple more moments to draw an image or type a word or phrase that represents what culturally welcoming means to them. Someone drew a picture of two hands reaching out to each other or perhaps shaking. Any of that are, any in particular that are catching your eye, Jen?
Yeah, I always, you know, many of your images also resonate with what I was thinking about. I want to just talk about the safe space. I also think about that, the freedom to be who you are and to be welcomed in that. I think when we started this, the thinking for this series and the planning, I have to tell you that I grew up in Seattle, and I'm Chinese American, you know, female. My family lived in poverty. English was my second language, and I lived in a family where my parents told me every day how great I was and how proud I should be of my heritage and everything. And unfortunately, my school experiences and my early youth experiences, very few of those environments did a lot to validate me culturally. And even though I grew up in a family where people told me to be proud, and I didn't really feel safe to be who I am in the classroom, in the school, in my after-school activities. So I think of also about just safe to be who I am. And also the question about diversity, I want to clarify right up front that when we talk about culturally welcoming and validating programs, we're not just talking about ethnic culture. We certainly include that, but racial and ethnic identity is one part of our cultural memberships, and we're talking about spirituality and ableness and gender and sexual orientation and immigration status. So I want to just put that up front, that when we talk about truly culturally welcoming and validating, it's about embracing the cultural diversity that exists in our families and in our communities, and figuring out ways to do that better and better. So thank you for sharing that. In a longer workshop, we could also build this into an activity, but this is sort of moving us into now the question of, so why is it important to do? So Eric, if you'd bring the next slide, slide number, is it 11? Oh, here, 10, got it. So I tried to think about what, of the 50 reasons I can think of, what might be 6 key ones. And we came up with this list, and I'm going to encourage you to use that chat feature to add your reflection to this conversation. You know, as you, most people probably on the call, this is more like preaching to the choir. You're on the call because you care about this. You believe in this, and our work is to bring other people that we work with and the community into this conversation and into this commitment. So I find that some reasons touch some people and other reasons touch other people. So I provided you 6 here, and I want to walk through those. And then as we're talking, or as I'm talking, if you would please add yours, and those of you that are on the phone only, you know, we'll give you an opportunity to share ideas. But the first one that I have up there about really building off the strengths and assets of families, whether we acknowledge it or not, people are bringing their cultural identities into our program spaces, into our classrooms, and it's, you know, in my point of view, it's a strength and an asset and a community richness. Unfortunately, a lot of our young people don't live in worlds where that it's viewed as such, and so I think a really important reason why we need to blaze the trail, lead the way, pioneer in this area is that if we are about affirming communities and building off the strengths, cultural identity and cultural membership is clearly a first place to do that. So I think it's important because it is who people are, and we need to step up and do it because too little in their world isn't doing that. A second reason is that the research, you know, has told us all along that self-esteem has everything to do with school success, with success as an adult, how we feel about ourselves. The research on prejudice reduction indicates that those of us that are comfortable in our own skins, comfortable with who we are, proud of who we are much more able to be open to difference, to others. We're just way more open. So another good reason is that it's an important foundation. If people have pride for themselves and their own heritages and who they are, they will just live differently in the world. So that's another good reason. I also think that a lot of us give lip service to the idea that we want youth and families to really participate as partners and join with us. And I don't know how that happens if you truly aren't extending welcome and respect to who they are. So I think if we want to partner, we need to do that. Also, our communities are really in great need of some leadership around developing a community of cultural allies. And I think in your programs, especially those of you that are working with young people, you have an opportunity to foster a new way of living in community. And I think that if students get a sense of what it feels like to respect and be respected and give respect, they're much better able to go out back to their homes and their communities to live that. So I think that that's another important reason. And the last one around modeling respect and providing people the actual experience of what that looks like and what it doesn't look like, and you know, you can create safe spaces for everyone in your community, and you can be active in that effort. So those are some of my reasons, and I want to give a moment to anyone else who would like to offer something else up around why is it important to do this work.
Okay, thanks, Jen. So yes, if for those of you that are in WebEx, if you'd like to add anything to this list, if you could type it in the chat box and send it to all participants. You may need to select all participants from that drop-down menu. For those of you that are on the phone, I'm going to go ahead and take it out of presentation mode, and you may have your own phone muted as well, so you might need to also unmute that, but we'd like to hear from you as well. So.
Presentation mode is now disabled.
Any thoughts you want to share? Questions?
Actually, I was just noticing that all participants might not work if sending it to all participants. So if you could choose instead host and presenter, that way myself and Jin should be able to see it. So Jin, I don't know if you can see it, but Nikki shared that another rationale is that creating or growing a culturally welcoming program creates and strengthens partnerships across the community.
Thanks, Nikki.
Anyone on the phone have additional rationales or ideas around why this is a valuable thing to do, to think about? No? Okay. Well, hearing or seeing none, shall we move ahead, Jen?
Yeah, and I just want to say that I think in my original take on this, I came up with 25 reasons. So I think that afterwards I'll put that all in a resource, because what I can tell you is as you try to rally your team around this conversation, certain things will stick out to them, and I think a lot of it, the commitment comes from a lot of our own personal experiences. So, you know, the phrasing may not catch them, so I think that the more reasons why we need to do the work, I think will be helpful. So I'm going to put a resource together so that you can stimulate conversation in your own teams. Okay, so our first job was really to do that, to kind of base this conversation in all the good reasons why do the work. My second sort of phase of this webinar was trying to envision culturally affirming environments. So if you would advance to the next slide, slide 11, we'll begin that work.
Sure, and I just wanted to mention, and I apologize for having the chat feature not set up the way it should be. But before we move on, Jen, I just wanted to mention that Christine Schaefer wrote a chat saying that growing a culturally welcoming program allows people to learn more about the world, especially those from rural areas and small towns where there sometimes aren't diverse populations.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. So now on to slide 11.
Yeah, the reason why I kind of went in this direction for the webinar is I believe that if you've had the good fortune to experience culturally affirming environments, you're already in a better position than some of us to replicate and create these kinds of programs. But even if we didn't benefit or experience that as, you know, for ourselves, I believe that envisioning it together can help us go a long way. So I thought, well, we need to do kind of a shared visioning process so that we can bring into closer view, what does this look like? I mean, if I'm going to try to make this happen, what would it not only look like, but what would it sound like? What would it feel like? What maybe even it might smell like or taste like? I think that as I think about designing programs, especially for children and youth, I know that what we do is we learn via all of our senses, you know. So unfortunately, sometimes we're in programs where someone may be up there telling us that we're welcome and that we're, who we are and who we are culturally is really appreciated, and we'll be spending time sharing and doing all that. And that might be one person's take on it, but all the other messages I'm getting from the physical environment, from other kinds of meetings that are happening in the program context don't tell me that same message. And so it begins to really water down my understanding that you're really, really wanting to welcome me and to embrace who I am. So I'm going to ask us to kind of do a 360 view of what culturally affirming environments looks like. So I've asked Eric to prepare slide number 12. And you notice we created another whiteboard situation here. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on, when you think about culturally welcoming and validating programs, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And even what does it taste like? You notice that someone's already put up kind voices.
Yeah. It looks like people have figured this out very quickly. If you could use for this one, let's just use the text tool, so the button that looks like the letter T, and if you could type something that you think represents what you would see or hear or feel or taste in the culturally welcoming program.
And Eric, is that way we can have more space? Is that what it is?
Yeah. We don't have quite as much screen real estate as we did with a couple of the other activities. For folks that are just on the phone, people are on slide 12 typing in words or phrases that represents what they would expect to hear or see or feel or taste if they're present or visiting a
Eric, you want to review what's coming up for the folks that are only auditory here?
Sure. I'll give a sample of just a couple from each in terms of what people might hear. People have suggested kind voices, people greeting you. For Spanish, press 1. For C, we have a couple that we have our open arms and diverse faces, smiles, and different skin colors. For feel, a couple people have suggested warm or warmth, welcomed and accepted. And then for taste, someone suggested ice cream. Thought that was fun. But also all kinds of different things, multicultural foods at events, and different foods to share, and child-friendly. Although I guess child-friendly might fit more under C, but works there as well.
Part of this webinar opportunity is that we're trying to create some tools also to support you in facilitating conversations about this. So if you received the packet, not only were you able to open up the slides, but a couple of handouts that we included resource materials, and I just keep making things. So I have one that is called Elements of a Culturally Validating Environment that goes through this. Eric, are you able to bring it up?
Sure.
There we go. So here, we're not going to have a chance, we don't have enough time to go through each of them, but I kind of want to start with the hearing and share with you some of the things that came to mind for me, and many of them are the same things that you put up as well. But, the idea that it's not just about words, but also about music. And I think that people read enthusiasm, not just words, but the kind of positive enthusiasm you have for all the cultural heritages and memberships of the community. So I tried to put in this list, and I hope you find it a useful resource. I also feel that that second one is really important, that it's not only those things that are affirming, but that are about advocacy, that we challenge misinformation and stereotyping and name calling and omissions. That it's not just about what we're saying, but what we're not saying or what other people are saying. And some things, sometimes name calling is just sort of left without comment. And I think that if we're trying to create culturally validating environments, we need to call it. We need to create working guidelines and create an ethic about how we are together when we're together. So I just tried to grab a lot of the things that I think about when I think about the work and put it in that list, and we can add the ones that you have onto it, but you could also use this as an opportunity to do training building off of this. I think the idea of person-first language is important, and also just around language and about as cultures evolve and as communities evolve, people take on different language, and our language and the use of terms will change because the community is changing and asking us to be respectful of where they are in their evolution. So all those conversations about what you might hear, I think, are really important. Eric, can we go to C?
I'm sorry, to what?
Does the second page come up too, or?
Yes, it does. And for those of you that are in WebEx, what Jen or what we have on the screen is a handout, which everyone will receive by email afterwards. And so for those of you that are just on the phone, we apologize. But Jen is reading a document she is going to share with you that includes some of her thoughts on that activity we just did with the hear, see, feel, and taste. So we're on page 2 of it, which talks about seeing. Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Thanks for that clarification, Eric. I'll get this down. So even under the seeing, I think I love the ideas of the warmth and the embrace and the diversity that sits in the room. And I also think that we can bring to our spaces symbolism and artwork and other things that reflect the different cultures of the community and issues that reflect it. So even something as simple as creating a bulletin board in the program where the community is invited to advertise what's going on is a way of validating the community and making it an extension of the community. And anytime that you have, another idea, please go ahead and use that chat feature, and Eric is able to monitor it. But I think you get the drift of this activity is to really get sort of a 360 view on what does growing culturally and welcoming validating programs look like. I think sometimes we rely on training to get that message across to our staff and volunteers. And sometimes I think it's just around the meal we can have a simple conversation, and the more people dream it, the more people envision it, that can help them then go ahead and take the initiative to start making that happen in the classroom. I think I'm watching our time, and I've got to move along, but I think that it's really hard to replicate something you've never experienced or never imagined. So it's a useful activity to spend some time talking and having a thorough conversation about how it might really be as an experience. Eric, thanks for putting that handout up, and we'll keep going on to marking the terrain.
I think, Jen, sorry, we're getting a little bit more background noise, so I'm going to put it back into presentation mode.
Okay.
We'll open up the phones again in a little bit.
Presentation mode is now enabled.
Okay.
So in terms of marking the terrain, what I want to say is that all the efforts that you're already putting forth to extend welcome and to validate the students and their families is important. And it kind of doesn't even matter where we begin. It matters that we begin and we begin doing the work, and then we commit to building off of that. So what I know is that from just experience, that we approach it differently given our sensibilities about what the work is. And on slide 14, the next one, I tried to identify some of the key parts of the puzzle. What's the work? If we're really going to do this, how does it happen? And so I tried to tag for you at least 10 areas of the work, and to clarify that so that as we begin to think about it. And what I know is that some of us do what we do with staff very well, and then some of the other areas need to be shored up. Or we're really good at creating a mission statement and a philosophy statement, and that's in place, but we haven't really tweaked our physical environment. The work requires really a systems approach and a more comprehensive approach. So it might be what your participants are experiencing in the programming, and it might be, so we call that the curriculum, the intentional and the unintentional curriculum. But it's also everything else that's sending them messages. So it may be that, sitting in the programming, it looks pretty good, but as we reflect on the staffing, it's not quite sending the same message about all cultures and communities welcome here. Or as we look at leadership and governance, but there have been people across the world that have been doing the work and providing us examples. I wanted to share with you one example of a mission and vision work. And so you'll notice on that parts of the puzzle, Eric, can you port in that other handout? Oh, great. So you'll get it, but what it is many of you know the lyricist and musician Raffi, and he heads up the Troubadour Foundation in Canada. And I came across this a couple of years back, and this is his covenant for honoring children. But if you read it, I think it's really beautiful, and it's an example of an organization, of a program that has spent some considerable time thinking about its mission and its messaging and trying to clarify what its founding principles are and what its beliefs are around children. And I think that if you're in a program where you haven't spent much time working on your mission or your vision around embracing the cultures of your community and the diversity in your community, I think it's times well spent to craft a position statement, because I think a lot of people need to understand the why behind what you're doing. And I wanted to provide you this one example so that you would have this. And if those of you out there have a mission statement or a philosophy statement you think is really good, we would appreciate you sharing that so that the rest of us on the call could benefit from it. I think we don't need to start from square one. There are lots of good examples out there, and if you take that and start reflecting on, so what do I want to say and what do we want to put forth so people, my staff, my community, my board are clear on what our commitment is to cultural validation, appreciation, honoring. It's there for everybody to see. So I just wanted to include that example. Thanks, Eric.
And did you want to show the checklist we put together as well?
Go ahead. Why don't you help me talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, just taking the elements of organizational capacity or features that we saw on the previous slide, we just put those 10 items on a document that will, we hope, allow you within your programs to think about the ways in which your program is culturally welcoming or not, or has some work it needs to do to achieve it. So if you're just on the phone, what it is just a one-page Word document set up as a checklist that displays the elements from slide 14 on a sheet and then offers some space for you and your colleagues or management to work together to think about ways that you can make your program, or acknowledge ways that you already are culturally welcoming, but also think about ways that you could make it even more so in different facets of your program.
Thanks, Eric. Looking at our time, and we wanted to do a couple of more things. One is I want to thank everyone who participated in this, but also spend a little bit of time on questions. Oh, Eric's put up the slide, and I thanks for the reminder. Hand in hand with the whole conversation about, what's the checkoff list? What are the steps we need to take to build a comprehensive system that supports welcoming students and families culturally? I for some of us, we relate to the kind of step-by-step process. What I do know is that all of that is really founded in a set of principles. It's not just a checklist, but there are some principles that guide the work. And I'd like to, facilitate us developing a solid set of guiding principles, and I've offered up 4 of them. And so for facilitating, inclusive environments or inclusive programming, these are some of the things that came to my mind. One is that it needs to be well integrated across the organization, not just across the curriculum, but the organization. That if we are going to be really solid in our advocacy, that we not only need to understand, what, like the holidays, the heroes, the celebrations of our culture, but we also need to understand historically the mistreatment, the misinformation, the stereotyping, and to be a true ally, to be able to step up and speak to some of that, or all of it. The other is to create the opportunities to have the community or the family or to be a resource. That it's not about us just simply hosting these conversations or facilitating them, but creating real partnerships with the community so that the classroom or the program becomes an extension of the community, and inviting authentic voices from the community. So it's one thing to bring in one guest speaker, but it's another to have an ongoing relationship with the community so that students have a rich understanding of the diversity that lives within a community. And again, the restating of the point that culture is definitely ethnicity and race, but it is also much more, and how students show up and how they identify themselves and how they relate with their different memberships is much broader than ethnicity and race. Thanks, Eric, for keeping that. And so just thinking about, yes, it's about a step-by-step process. Yes, it would include a plan. Yes, it would be comprehensive about a system. But then underneath all of that is also just a set of guiding principles that get applied across everything that we do. So I'm going to move to slide 17. And then, are there any questions or comments? We have both to thank you as we're looking at the clock tick. And, here was another attempt at trying to do some multicultural ways of saying thank you to you all, and also create an opportunity for you to add thank yous. So that is a whiteboard on the right side. And if you'd like, you can use your text annotation tool to add to our list of ways to say thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And I think we can go ahead and also start taking questions and comments, which I believe we were planning to do at this point. So I'm going to take the phone out of presentation mode. And at this point, we'll have an open floor. And you can use the WebEx raise hand or chat tool if you want, or you can just unmute your own phone and offer something up as well.
Presentation mode is now disabled.
Okay, so anyone have questions or comments? Or anything else people would like to share, or reflections, or maybe experiences from the work of trying to make your program more inclusive and make it more culturally validating?
Or even the challenges you've had in doing it, or what's helped.
Is there a particularly poignant example from your own experience, Jen, that you'd like to share, or some lessons learned, or kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but or how maybe a client you've worked with where you helped them implement?
Yeah, from reading the names on the list, there are actually a couple people I think we've met before, and that's really great to see. I have, for the last 14 years in my home state, spent quite a bit of time working, especially with one of our tribal communities, and the work that I was asked to come help do is all around creating alternatives to a life inflicted with substance abuse, and it was really a parents group that invited me, and they're in recovery. But it took us a while, and I feel like now we finally have a program that really is a natural fit for who the families and the communities are. So one of the programs that we developed is a program called CEDAR, and the name comes directly from something that's really important to the culture and tradition of the S'Klallam people. And so CEDAR stands for Culture, Education, Drug-Free Action, and Responsibility. And young people and elders come together, and they design the programming, and they build all of our programming around those chunks. So, I mean, that's an example of, it took me a while to understand what would symbolically as well as programmatically really fit in. And some of the exciting things that we've done is the students have, at our leadership camps, not only teach programs of canoeing, but they also talk about traditional leaders. There's just a lot of different things that I think you get better and better at it. If you listen what the community tells you, what really fits well with who they are and what they need. Erica, I hear sounds happening here. I wanted to make sure that we showcased our resources too if people don't have questions.
Sure, and we've gotten a couple of chat messages come in, one that I think only I got from Robin Neely, and then one that you might see from Jennifer Friglet. And actually, I'd like to invite both Robin and Jennifer, if you don't mind, just to go ahead and, for the rest of the folks, just maybe restate what you had typed in your chat message. But while we let you unmute your phones, let's go to slide 19, which provides a list of selected resources. So any you would like to describe in detail a bit more, Jen?
Lots of great web resources, and I know many of you have already been going to Teaching for Change, and lots of the publications. When I thought of this series, I thought especially of the work by Enid Lee and Beyond Heroes and Holidays. I just think that lots of good stuff, the Multicultural Pavilion, and a lot of really great things coming out of Oregon as well, but there are practitioners who are out there that are willing to share ideas and be the clearinghouse for lots of great ideas. So you'll see some of the work of Paul Gorski and other people just sharing ideas they've used. A lot of folks who are teachers that have moved over to oversee mentoring programs or youth programs or other kinds of programs. But we identified 3 of them on the right, and also from Norel itself, we have quite a few resources that you might be familiar with or not, and I really encourage you to visit all 6 of those websites.
And actually, you provided a nice, longer and more comprehensive list of resources, Jen, and we just had a little bit of space on the slide to put some here, but we'll be emailing out to everyone a copy of the full list of resources. And looks like we've reached our official end time for the webinar. So Jen and myself are happy to stick around as long as people would like to chat or talk or ask questions. So I encourage you to stay on the line with us, but we understand that people may need to go, and it looks like, unfortunately, Robin might needed to have left. Apologize for that. But so consider this the official end of our presentation. The very last slide, slide 20, provides the contact information for us here at LEARNS. Feel free to give us a call or an email at any time. As we said at the beginning, we're funded to provide assistance to programs such as your own that are doing work with youth, and so certainly we have resources we can offer, and we'd love to hear from you and hear about the good work you're doing and see if there are ways that we could help. So as your last official act, after we end our session and you close out of WebEx, you should be sent to an evaluation survey automatically. But if not, I'll be sending it out. I'll be sending out a link to the survey along with some additional resources afterwards. So please do take a few moments to complete that survey. As Jen said earlier, we're doing 2 more webinars in this series, and we want to make sure that it's on target and helpful to you and your colleagues. But with that, thanks again for joining us and for the good work that you do for our youth and for our communities.
Thank you.
And but if you have time to stick around, we'd love to keep talking or for more questions. So.
This is Jennifer Frigolette. Am I off mute?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, my question was, I work with the volunteers who work with the literacy programs for kids and adults, and our volunteers generally come from a different background than the children or the adults that they're tutoring. And we're having a cultural diversity training in October, but a lot of times the people who attend and you mentioned this earlier, the people who attend trainings to talk about cultural diversity are already aware that it's something that we need to work on. And how do we get people that don't necessarily think they need to come to a cultural diversity training to come and learn and share?
Right. Now, so your training isn't required for them to work with the youth they're assigned?
Nope, it's just an optional training.
Have you thought about making it a requirement, Jennifer?
That's not logistically possible.
Oh, okay. And the other thing is, what I have found is when I have people who are maybe tentative about attending a training is providing them incentive or including them in the agenda.
Mm.
So asking them, kind of sneaky way, but in terms of if it's to get them in the room, and or also ask them what's keeping them from coming to the training. Sometimes that's a fear,
mm-hmm.
and if I can ferret that out and address the fear, that's another way. But I try to provide incentives, or another way for a lot of our volunteer programs I've been successful with is providing kind of a fun incentive that say everybody who attends the training and gets there on time is entered into a raffle, and we've got, something that some local businesses gifted us. But, sometimes you just have to get them into the room, and once they're into the room, we can keep them engaged and we can keep them feeling themselves safe. I think people who don't attend it, we need to express to them how critical the training is to prepare them to work well with their students. That I would also encourage you to use some volunteers to give testimony to some of the things they've applied in terms of their learning, working with culturally different students or young people.
Mm-hmm.
So and those are the things I can think of, like provide incentive, explain how important it is, get their peers to pitch to them, create an opportunity for them to contribute during the agenda so that it's just not about them receiving, but they're going to be helping something happen.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that come to my mind. And then really, if you can't do it, programmatically, having other people express just how important it is, especially when you're preparing to be the helpmate of someone who's culturally different. Mm-hmm. Why that's important and what a difference it makes when you have more information about how to truly help them and how to really, what's the best way to meet them where they are. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Sure.
I see we have some a collective art work.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Okay, we've gotten some comments and feedback that have come in on chat, so thanks for all of you that provided those. Is Robin still with us, or did you have to leave already, Robin? Okay. So looks like we missed Robin. Anyone else like to share anything or have a question? And if you think of something afterwards or something comes up later on, certainly feel free to give us a call or email here at Learns, and if we have something available on hand we can pass along, we will, or if you have a question for Jen, I can pass that along as well, or have ideas for you as well. So not seeing or hearing any additional questions, I think maybe we'll go ahead and wind down. So any final.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Good. Okay.
I think I got
you.
This is Angie, and I think I finally accomplished getting on. Can you guys see me there? Or?
Yes. Yeah, we saw you pop on, and we were very happy to see you appear.
Hopefully, it'll be sooner next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. And Jen?
Yes.
Do you have something right now after this session?
No, can we spend a little time just sort of debriefing?
Sure. Why don't we hang up and call you back in a couple of minutes?
Sure.
The cell phone or your home phone?
Home phone.
Home phone. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.